All right, everybody, welcome to Poundtown Podcast. My name's Nate Byer, and I'm very fortunate to have Eddie Mauro. Eddie is actually running for a senatorial spot in the state of Iowa. I believe he's running as a Democrat against Joni Ernst, and we obviously hope for the best for everything for him. Welcome, Eddie.
Thanks, Nate. Great to be here.
Hey, so I understand that in your political realm, a lot of what goes on and a lot what you guys do is who has the best 30 seconds. So I invited you on here because I also know that a lot of times people don't get to know who the person is. And I think there's always a disconnect, as a voter. Yeah, your 30 seconds was good, but whatever. And I figured this kind of gives me a chance to meet the actual person, and maybe some people get a chance to know a little bit more about you. That's not the American flag waving in the background, high five commercials that you get to see for the next year and a half without, pause. So I guess we'll start with basically upbringing, home life. How did kind of get to this point as far as what brought you here family wise?
Yeah, well, first of all, your initial premise is a good one because, especially right now with the caucuses going on, that it isn't about 30 seconds. It's about getting out into homes and community centers and small businesses and farms and other places and meeting people. Presidential candidates are doing it. And we're doing it as well, and we're getting a good opportunity to share our story and what our vision is, and then answer questions from Iowans. And as you know, and what the country knows now, as you're seeing this process, is how in tune Iowa is to what's going on around the country. And when I'm going out, I'm sharing my story. My story is this: I'm a lifelong Iowan, somebody that spent an awful lot of time in rural communities and urban communities. Spent a lot of time at my grandmother's house in Carroll, Iowa, and at my aunt and uncle's farm nearby there. A place where I've learned an awful lot about Iowa values and many days and nights in rural Iowa.
Carroll's a great place. I grew up there my whole life.
Yeah. So spent a lot of time also, in urban Iowa. My parents married now 60 plus years, but my mom, she was and dad, both very hardworking people. My mom cleaned houses for a living. She cut hair. She worked in the school cafeteria. My dad was a Navy person, and after he left the Navy, he became a lifelong teacher and coach, which is what I initially wanted to become. It's what I did. So my early career was being a teacher and a coach.
Awesome.
Taught in rural communities, Seymour, Iowa, down in Wayne County. My first teaching job, and did some coaching in Boone, Iowa, and worked at other places around the state. And really loved that. Thought that's where my life would be. And then was fortunate for my wife and I to bring into the world twins, Dominic and Mia Mauro. And I tell people often when I'm running around that I swore that I would do whatever I needed to do to take care of my kids today and in the future. And I set out on that course to do that. Unfortunately, I found out that teaching was hard to do and raise my kids the way I wanted to do. The math just wasn't there to take care of all the expenses of raising two kids and meeting potential emergencies and planning to send them to college one day. So I left the classroom. I built a business. It's an insurance wholesale operation.
Okay.
And I've been able to instill progressive values in doing that, and at the same time creating hundreds of jobs and impacting thousands of small businesses around the state of Iowa, all 99 counties I touch through that business. And Nate, I'll tell you, because of the success of that, I was able to give back to my community in new ways. And through all of that, I've been involved in community organizing and service work and activism, and it allowed me to expand that activism, being able to start assisting domestic violence survivors and human trafficking survivors, and fighting for workers' rights and farmers' rights. Became a champion on mental health. A lot of work, and like I said, in the homeless community. I lead a project in Africa today where we install water systems. I work with Akeo Abdul Samad with Creative Visions in the inner city. And then homeless initiatives, just a lot of good work I've been able to be involved in. And as I did that work, I saw I wanted to do more. Like Barack Obama, I became a community organizer.
Okay.
I'm a founding member of an organization known as Amos, which has done some great work in Central Iowa for over 20 years. And I continue to do that kind of work and helping people and fighting for injustices, I saw there was more to be done, which leads me to this race today.
That's awesome. That's always good to hear that, the disconnect was never there. Because I think sometimes, in what I've seen, is that sometimes the politicians aren't in tune with the people.
Right.
And that's just definitely something with you working with the community. You're not like, even though you created a business, you're still like, no, the people are the part of the business that makes the business. So it's nice to see that, it's different than what a lot of times you hear.
No, absolutely. I think it's one of the things that sets me apart. So I just don't talk about we want to make sure everybody has health care. We want to make sure that women have the right to control their bodies. I've been walking that walk for a long time. So we just don't talk about improving our schools and taking care of the injustices around the world and improving our climate and environment. I've been out making those fights for decades now. So I feel folks are out there and I hear them. And it's important that we hear people today, and we don't do a good enough job of that. We seem to talk over them or even talk down to them, right? And I'm out running around the state telling people that I hear them and I understand them, and I want to be part of the solution, not that I'm just bringing the solution to you, right? They don't need somebody on a white shining horse coming in to save the world. They want somebody who can sit down with them and understand them, and then go fight with them, right? Which is what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and that's really nice to hear that, there is someone that's championing the people, instead of championing their own cause or, their own political, aspirations. It's just more you're trying to serve, and there's has been, and you've seen, unfortunately, in a lot of politics that there is a disconnect between the establishment and then what they're actually supposed to be serving. So it's nice to see someone's actually going, hey, I'm not here to, you're not, even though you're doing it for political gain, you want to be able to be a politician. You're not doing it to be a politician in that sense. You're doing it because you want to be able to serve your people. And it's just a big difference than I think a lot of people are at, because you've built a business. You have that part of it. You don't need this. You want this to help people.
Right. So it's a great point. We've kind of lost the public service in being a public servant, right? And unfortunately, sometimes that's on both sides of the aisle, right? It's not just on the R side. That can happen to the D side. We forget that we're supposed to be out helping people. We sometimes put on our R&D hat, and then we get into lost political gamesmanship so much so we forget that we need to be helping people. And in order to protect our team, sometimes we actually hurt the people we're supposed to be out there trying to help. Instead of finding policy solutions and doing those types of things that really move us forward, we're so busy taking care of our own turf.
Yeah.
Like the Sharks and the Jets that we can't go out and solve the problems that people voted us and sent us there for.
And even if you can keep a beat and start snapping, I don't think it's going to change much, because it seems to be a lot of what is going on. It is I don't know how many people are going to get the West Side Story reference, depending on who's actually doing this. I think
go watch the movie West Side Story and you'll get the reference. So, but that's what we need. So, and there's some people that say, can you go change that? And we got two choices, Nate. I can go work on projects other than get inside the room in the political arena, and I do a lot of that, and I can continue to do that. Or we can go fight the good fight and see if we can change this, because this isn't sustainable. People are weary of the type of politics we have. We need to talk about a new era in politics. You mentioned the establishment. I'm actually pushing back against the establishment, even within my own party. I think both parties' establishment are off track. And again, they're not really looking forward to work with the people in their communities as much as they are trying to look above them and down upon them. And it's not about saying, sorry that you're all doing so bad, I'm going to ride into the rescue. It's that I feel you and hear you and understand you, and I want to ride along with you to fix what's going on.
Yeah, and from my point of view, from what I've seen so far, is that it's more become like two younger brothers fighting. Neither of them are right, because no, you're wrong, no, you're wrong. It's just a back and forth, but they're not fixing the problem. Instead they're just blaming someone else for what the issue is, instead of they're looking at the symptoms, but they're not trying to fix what's creating those symptoms. What the actual issue is. So.
Right. It's because they're fixed in their ways. And we need them to be more open.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're more open, then we can be more innovative and we can be more forward-thinking. And again, that's what we talk about, a new era in politics where we can get out of our fixed lanes and figure out how we can make some real progress.
And be able to listen.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's easy to say, but it's harder to hear sometimes. And
we're hearing that a lot. That
yeah.
People say, I'm glad you're here, and I believe that you are hearing me.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't hear people, then we shouldn't be in the game,
mm-hmm.
right?
Definitely. So outside of that stuff, obviously you talked about how you kind of got to this area, always being from Iowa and everything. What are, I guess, some of the things that you really enjoy, or what are some of the biggest things that you enjoy to do outside of obviously being busy with work and stuff like that? Like, what are things that you really enjoy about the state?
So about the state, so I love, first of all, I love my family, which is very
mm-hmm.
important to me.
Yes.
But you know what, I've been working in throughout this state forever. Actually, back in my earlier days, I drove a truck around the state of Iowa before I got into, I was going through college in my early days outside of college. And remember vividly driving through communities and seeing how wonderful the state is.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what section of the state you go up into, in the northeast or the northwest or southwest or
mm-hmm.
southeast, remarkable communities, remarkable people, really hidden gems that are out there that a lot of us don't even know exist.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the fun parts about running for U.S. Senate right now is getting a chance to revisit some of those communities, whether they're places I visited back in my college days when I was a college athlete, or in my coaching days when I was coaching in communities and taking teams around the state of Iowa, or today in my business world where it takes me into all these counties. So it's fun to go and meet people again and see people again, get reacquainted with some of those communities. Wonderful small business
mm-hmm.
activities going on around the state. There's great entertainment opportunities for us, whether it be a small winery in Baldwin, Iowa, or you're going up to the beer brewery up in Decorah, Iowa, or you're making your way over into Spencer and Okoboji, or down to Shenandoah, where you look at the great restaurant that Bill Hillman has going on down there. You get all the way down to Red Oak. Obviously, that's Joey Ernst's neighborhood, but a great town square and great people and great things going on there.
Mm-hmm.
I always talk about our bigger communities, talk about Iowa City and Cedar Rapids, Des Moines. We all kind of remember them,
mm-hmm.
but a lot of great small communities. Go down to Fort Madison, go down to Clinton, and those types of places, and you just find so many hidden gems
mm-hmm.
Along our riverways, along our natural lakes. Great places for us to go that we should be proud of,
mm-hmm.
And that we want to continue to invest in
mm-hmm.
and uplift, because that's what should bring people to Iowa, to make this a place to live for them. It's another thing that we need to be talking about, what we need to be fighting for.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
So we have a couple different shows that we have here on our network and our channel and everything like that. And with Christina's side of it, she always asks, like, what's your favorite 5? I won't make you do 5 or whatever, but of the places, let's say in the Des Moines community, because you still live within Des Moines and everything, what would you say in this area, or Des Moines or the surrounding community, what's like a couple places that you go, these are the places that I really, food-wise, because everybody goes to food. When you say your favorite 5, it's either that or the sculpture park, because, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's beautiful. I'm glad they put that in. It's a big draw for Des Moines, and now we have the new Love sculpture down there. Finally, I don't know, it apparently travels or something, so I was like, okay. But what are some places that you go, this is like, I really enjoy these kind of places?
Yeah. So how about the Fleur Theater? Good independent films. It was the Fluor 4 once upon a time. Just had feature films for a long time, but now a lot of independent films, a lot of foreign films. A great place to go. My wife and I have many date nights at the Fluor Theater.
And small market. It's a small business. It's not AMC. It's not Cinemark. It's its own thing and still surviving. That's awesome.
So the Fluor Theater.
Yeah.
Love going to Grays Lake and into Waterworks Park.
Okay.
Whether we're going on a hike or a run or a bike ride, and the work that they're doing at Waterworks Park to continue to make that an attraction for people young and old.
You got to put a sump pump somewhere in there.
Yeah, they're working. It's a great place to go.
Yes.
I love to go to Principal Park and watch a baseball game.
Last weekend of home games this weekend.
This weekend, yeah. So, in fact, caucus night tomorrow night. The Iowa caucuses are playing. So I have the Iowa caucus uniforms on tomorrow night.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure when this is running, but we might be past that. But recognizing the Iowa caucuses that are going on and the great energy for there. I love the Science Center and the Art Center. Also some good places. I didn't jump in just into the foods for you because I think there's so many other places for us to go do good things.
Yes.
In Iowa, and again the Des Moines Playhouse is really good. I go see the independent plays and the things that are going on there. Some great people doing some great work there.
Okay.
So there's some great gyms in the Des Moines area.
More than there used to be. It used to be like 2 or 3 was about it, and now it's you can't sneeze without hitting something.
So it's funny you say that because today we're chastised for being from Des Moines.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I lived in a neighborhood that was a farm neighborhood, right? We were the only house on the street, surrounded by wheat fields and cornfields and horses. So I grew up until probably 12, 13, 14. It was a farm, right, in the city. And then obviously over the years that has changed. That's no longer there. It got bought up and developed, and the old Sposato farm is now long gone, and the horses and everything else are long gone. But the development in Des Moines has been remarkable, and some really good forward-thinking leaders. So some diversity brought to us, some good entertainment. Obviously, you mentioned the food, and I've kind of avoided that because there's too many restaurants. I don't want to leave anybody out. There's some great food out there.
Yeah, definitely. I know the diversity of food has expanded. Yep. It's not just burger joints or American food. I know that's one big thing that Des Moines people don't know about Des Moines is that it isn't just American food, even though it's the Midwest, and don't get me wrong, best pork you can get. Yeah. But the diversity is getting better and better and better. All the communities are now starting to have their own restaurants, and it's amazing how it's actually expanding.
All right, the creativity of those small business owners and what they're doing. The food trucks now that we're starting to see around that kind of make us an interesting city. But while we've had all that great development, Nate, I think we also need to be looking at the places that are still being left behind in our communities. I still think there's a lot more we can be doing in certain parts of the city that aren't benefiting from the development and all the newness and freshness and revitalization. And that's a city effort, that's a state effort, and that's a national effort that we need to make sure we look at some of those communities, and mostly it's going to be communities of color. It'll be communities that are older and poorer, where they don't have as much of a voice, where we've left them behind, whether it's that infrastructure is behind. We're not seeing the same small business development. We're not seeing the same improvements in their schools, again, which is creating cycles of poverty and a certain sense of folks being left behind that we need to address. And it's great that we can have this conversation today to challenge everybody, whether it be our city leaders, whether it be our county leaders, again, whether it be our state leaders, and then one of the reasons we're running to be a U.S. Senator, to make sure that we're not forgetting about those folks that are being left behind. And it's one of the reasons we're running, because in the midst of all of that newness that's happening, in Des Moines and maybe in Iowa City and Cedar Rapids and other communities, there's a lot of communities are being left behind, where we're seeing people still struggling, not being able to pay their bills, they're living paycheck to paycheck or $500 hiccup away of some sort that put them in financial jeopardy. And we're seeing, again, some of our main streets and town squares are not participating in the successes that others are. That we're seeing some of our rural schools not participating in some of the successes that others are. That we're seeing rural hospitals going away, mental health facilities, and the opportunities for folks that are dealing with mental health issues to find help and solutions. We're seeing our farmers struggling as well. So while there's a lot of great things going on in our state, there's so much more work to be done. And every day, our leaders should be standing up and figuring out what is it that we need to be continue to make our state a better version of itself. And we shouldn't rest because we always have work to do. We always have improvements to make. And that's why I'm here. It's why I'm asking for the vote of Iowans. I'm asking to be their U.S. Senator, to go out and serve them so we can continue to build every day to become better. Right?
Well, and it really says, kind of like when you drive into the state of Iowa, there's always going to be the sign that says "Welcome to Iowa," but it feels as though your idea is truly fields of opportunities. Yes, we are doing well in some parts, but there's fields of opportunities that we need to focus on and get out there. And it's nice to see someone's actually not just saying, "Yay, we're doing great." No, we have a lot of work to be done, and a lot of things that can help people. The other thing I really enjoy is that you're not saying I'm running for Senate. You're saying we. So I know, but I don't think a lot of people understand that it takes a village. So it's really nice to hear someone not just saying, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. It doesn't feel as though it's selfish. It feels as though you have people behind you, you have a group that, that is helping you and pushing you forward. And it's not just, you being like, look at me, whatever. So it's really nice to hear the we part.
I appreciate that. So, as you know, I came from an athletic background, right? A whole family of athletes, and a lot of us were involved in coaching and had some good success there. And we had that success not because of me. We had a success because we were able to organize a good team. We could provide the stage where people could perform, and we can figure out how we can work through the highs and lows that were in front of us, that we can deal with successes in a good way and deal with defeats and challenges and figure out how we overcome them. And that's the same premise here, right? There's days where we're going to have successes and we should celebrate them. And we've had some, right? But right now there's a lot of days where we're having lots of failures. And I'm seeing that around, and again, in all these communities, in farms and churches, in community centers and fire stations and daycare centers and small businesses. There are people out there still struggling. Yeah. To get by. And as long as that's happening, then we need to make sure we're working together as a team to figure out how do we make ourselves better today, right? Even after a year we won a state championship, the very next season we started off with how are we going to do better? Where can we get better, right? We won a big game, congratulations, we won a big game, let's go celebrate that big game. But then how do we do better? What can we do to become better yet? And if we have that mentality every day, then we'll continue to move this community and this state and this country forward, right? And not backwards to some era that where they talk about great again. We're moving forward to an era where we're going to be greater every day, and that's in front of us, not behind us.
Oh, true. So obviously mentioned being a coach and having a sporting family. Now I don't want to say like, what's your favorite team in Iowa or anything like that. I don't want to put you in that kind of market. But that being said, as far as sports go, where do you like, what are your favorite sports? Like, I know it's a big time of year. I know Andrew Luck's gone, which blew people's mind. That was a big drop. But like, what is the, if you have a weekend, what's the sports that you're most inclined to start watching?
So I was a baseball and football coach predominantly. Okay. Coached some basketball, did some track as a coach. You know what I like, Nate? I like good competition, right? I love to see two teams go battle, whether that's the women in the World Cup soccer. It's just so much fun to watch. Right now we're watching the U.S. Open.
Yes.
And you get a chance to watch the men's side and the women's side and the great competition. It's fun to see. Nothing like seeing a good, deep and 5-set match, either whether the women are deep or for the men, or a deep
Well, the
So
Wimbledon
that's really-
final was just past us, and that was amazing.
Yeah.
Watching that final, I remember it was 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm like glued to a television,
Yeah.
just trying to watch that.
So I love good games. So when Iowa State play, I'm rooting for a great game. I'm looking for good competition. I'm looking for adversity where you see people get off the deck when things are bad, and they make it work, and you see people how they maintain their composure and they fight through the valleys that might be in front of them. It's really if you really watch closely athletes today, how they deal with adversity for the most part. Every once in a while they do something that where they lose their composure. For the most part, people that are fighting, whether they're ahead by 20 or behind by 20 or ahead by 2 touchdowns or behind or 5 runs or behind or whatever that is. And I really enjoy watching people, how the mental part of their game, how they take those skills that they developed that maybe God has helped them with, that they've taken to another level. That is so much fun to watch that. So I'm looking for some fun fall football, both at the high school and college level. Again, looking forward to, my son was a cross-country runner, so I look forward to watching people go out and compete in cross-country. I still love to compete myself, so you'll find me in a tennis court once in a while, or on the golf course, or playing a little basketball every once in a while, because I still like to play when I can.
Center, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
5'8" of me.
Hey, gonna be posting up on somebody?
5'8". It's funny you said that. When I was a sophomore in high school and playing football, and they were kind of describing all the positions, and they said, hey, you could be the X position, which is a wide receiver. And I said, well, I got good hands. I'd be a good wide receiver, but you also sometimes play at the tight end spot. But you're not there very often. Sure not, I played more tight end than I did wide receiver. I'm standing next to guys who are like 6'4" and 225 pounds. And I'm like 5'8" and 110. It was an odd look. It was a lot of fun, though. And I learned one thing. The same thing I'm learning in this race, same thing I'm learning about Iowans. That it's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight and the dog. So as long as we remember that, some of us are left behind because we don't have the power and the money to do things. It's the size of fight that we have that'll help us persevere and make sure that our voices are heard.
Speaking of sportswear, actually, it's kind of weird because we're really in a golden age in Iowa for sports. Obviously, the Iowa Cubs are doing very well. Both of our major collegiate sports are doing, at least for Iowa and Iowa State, and then UNI, all have good football teams. They've all been, in the last handful of years, have been really good on basketball teams. I think it's just something that for the longest time, Iowa State wasn't known as a football presence. They were only basketball, and Iowa was kind of in and out here and there. So I think right now is just kind of a really weird time for Iowa. And don't get me wrong, we don't have any, obviously, professional sports. But for amateurism, it's really big. I think both Iowa and Iowa State are both ranked in the top 25. They haven't played yet. So we'll hope they stay there, but I think that's really interesting. It's just really nice to see that Iowa's being more on the map for sports. For the longest time, it just really wasn't outside of wrestling.
All right.
And don't be wrong, wrestling is. I don't think people understand how big wrestling is in Iowa. If you've been, it's ridiculous. Yeah, watching the nationals and stuff like that, it's like, oh my God.
No, it's an exciting time.
Yeah.
You're right. The Cubs are doing well. There's a lot of energy about both Iowa and Iowa State, and always UNI. They do a great job up there.
They're the spoiler for everybody. Like, nobody ever really wants to play them because they're like, they could win. They don't, that doesn't look good if, it's almost a lose-lose. You're supposed to beat them, so it doesn't look good if you beat them, but it looks horrible if you lose.
Yeah. Well, and they do great in their division.
Yeah.
Then we got to talk about, the Drake men and women both had great years in basketball.
Oh, yeah.
Last year, doing some great things, and their soccer and softball programs are solid. Obviously, the Drake Relays is a
Big
huge
event.
competitive event. So you got to like all that. And you got so many small colleges around here that do really well. So Central and Simpson in the past have done some great things in many sports.
We aren't all farm boys anymore. We're getting actual athletes now. It's not we're all linemen. It's kind of nice. We're actually getting some real athletes out of the state finally.
Well, it's and there's some good athletes in those rural communities, and we're starting to see some of them come and do some some big things. Not too far removed from a guy like Dallas Clark, who's a pretty good athlete that went on and did some big things from from a rural community.
Mm-hmm.
Even though some of those big linemen, they are big linemen, but they're very athletic,
Mm-hmm.
right?
The Harlan boys. Anybody from Harlan, I just assume is 6'4", about 260. Just all of them.
Harlan boys, guys from Dyke, New Hartford.
Oh yeah, just all farm communities.
All around.
Baling hay, and you're like, oh, that's what they do. They don't lift; they just bale hay.
Yep. And it's great to. So my first head coaching job was in Seymour, Iowa.
Okay.
And that's where I really got the hang of how important the farm communities were, because I'm out coaching football, and I came from out of coaching in Dowling for a long time.
Okay.
That's a whole different a different mentality and commitment. And I was at Seymour, we're getting our football season ready to go, and we've gone through our first 2.5 weeks and all of a sudden the guys come and say, Coach, we're not here next week. I said, where are you at? Because we got to go to the fair. I said, what? I said, yeah, it's the big FFA activities, and we're all going. And it then taught me how important the farming community is to those communities, important farms in those communities to those schools, and how connected those schools are to the farms. And now what I'm seeing today, though, Nate, is the disconnect that's going on because of what we're doing to those rural communities, what we're doing to our public schools in those rural communities. I worry about communities like Seymour because at the state level and at the federal level, we're not supporting our public schools in the way that we used to. And I'm not sure why that's happening from our friends on the other side of the aisle, but that's going to be devastating if we don't figure out how we go elect people that still remember how integral those schools, those rural schools are to those rural communities and to those main streets and town squares. And I didn't mean to circle us back into politics, but
no, you're fine. That actually works perfectly.
It's
town squares. I love them. Almost every town either has a town square or 2 churches.
Yep, all of them. So so I learned the value of the farm community there from all those kids. Right, they went to school. They wanted to play football, but they also had responsibilities for their farms. And they took that responsibility serious enough to say, Coach, I can't come to practice this week. I go to the fair, not just go to play. I go to the fair because I go to work. I'm going up and taking my cows or my pigs or hogs or whatever else I had to bring up there to work. And then the next year I knew that, so we already had that planned out.
Nice.
When's the fair? How many days you guys going? Let's make sure we work around that and then prepare our season from then on.
So I guess we'll kind of go into the political part of it, obviously, with you running. What are, we'll say, 3 big things that you would say these are the most important the 3 top things at your list of what you would like to get done if you get elected? Or push towards, I guess. I know there's a lot of stuff. There's always going to be a lot of stuff because there's a lot of stuff that needs help. But if you could say kind of 3 or a couple things that you would say these are the things that I think in Iowa would be the best for us to focus on.
So we need to first of all focus on power and money in government at all levels. So the amount of money and the amount of power that is concentrated with those that have the money is making it difficult for us to make progress in so many ways. I also think we need to be very worried about our democracy overall. That there is a concerted effort to shackle our democracy. And we're seeing a concerted effort of trying to make our public schools weaker, to make our wage earners stagnant and poor and put down, to put squeezes on organized labor, collective bargaining. We're seeing threats about voting rights and voting restrictions. So I'm worried about our overall democracy and where we're heading with that. And again, I think there's a purposeful effort out there, and I'm blaming it on folks like the Koch brothers, you've heard very well, or ALEC. And our Republican brothers and sisters that are elected officials today seem to be buying into that methodology and that philosophy, which I think is really bad for Iowa. The third thing that I'm really concerned about is the misleading and trickery that's going on to tell people that you're with them when you're really not.
Oh, talking out of the side of your mouth.
We do that a lot. So I know you expected me to talk about climate change and health.
No, I didn't. Those things are going to be there regardless of whatever. I understand that, and even as a politician, you only have so much you can actually affect.
Right. But those three things are keeping us from doing anything meaningful.
Yes.
On all the others, right? Until we have some meaningful campaign finance reform, where we get money out of government, so that a person in living in Lamona, Iowa, has the same voice as somebody that lives in New York City that works on Wall Street. That's not happening today. That person on Wall Street has 20 times, 50 times, maybe 1,000 times the voice as somebody that's a plumber in Lamona, Iowa. And that's not fair in our democracy. And there's an effort to actually codify that, to make that permanent, that happens. And I'm out there to fight with Iowans and convince Iowans that you need to stand up and speak up, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian or an Independent, to stand up and say that we cannot let that happen for the future of our state, the future of our nation. It is at jeopardy if we allow that mentality to take hold and allow that to happen to us. Very, very important. And a lot of people don't see that because of the conning, the misleading, the trickery that's going on. That's saying that that I'm there with you, that I want to fix these trade imbalances when I really don't. Right? That I want to help manufacturing when I really don't. That I want to help farmers. When the fact of the matter is I really don't. That I'm interested in taking care of the African American community or the LGBTQ community. When the fact of the matter is they really don't. Right? But they've done a great job of telling them that, and they've convinced a lot of people of that, and those people have voted for that. But I'm hoping the folks are realizing that they've been conned, and they've been misled, they've been tricked, and they need somebody that wants to come and legitimately listen to them, walk with them, fight with them on the things that will make their community strong now into the future.
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen it a lot where people don't realize that when someone says I'm with you and to get their vote, and then they just put it by the wayside. Right. They're just, it is just a walk away. It's like, okay, I thank you. Have a good day. It's like, what? Did I miss something? And, and that hurts. That hurts a lot of communities. That hurts a lot of people. And some people just haven't been hurt by it yet. And there's still the wool over their eyes type situation. Yet again, older references. I don't know why I know them. Apparently, I was watching Lawrence Welk as a kid. I learned a lot of that stuff. And Hee Haw and all those good old shows and everything, but there's a lot of that stuff where I just think people, the sound bite, and that's why I started off with, the sound bite's what a lot of people are getting with, and a lot of people don't take the time to learn or want to know. They want to look at that 30-second snippet. They want to just go with that. Like, I like what they said. I like the cut of their jib. Yet again, an old reference, but it's stuff like that. And then when it goes bad, the same people that promised them the same stuff are going to go, well, it only went bad because that person, because the other person. So it's they never take any of the responsibility for what they said, and they also don't take responsibility for the actions that they've put out there.
Right. And we can't blame people that they can't take more time, because people out there grinding.
Yeah, right? I don't have time to sit there and 30 seconds is all I got.
Sometimes that's all you're gonna get. And our friends on the other side have been a master of how to use that 30 seconds. But unfortunately, it hasn't really been used in a sincere way to really move us forward. Make America great. Great slogan.
Oh, we got a flag going right now. We're gonna put that in post. We're gonna have a nice big flag in the background for the whole time.
But on the face of it, that sounds like, well, that's great. Let's make America great again. Yep, because there were some great days, right? The question is, what did that mean for the people that were saying that? For me, make America great again was, let's go back and show that same fight we did to end slavery. Let's go show that same fight when we unified to pass the 19th Amendment so women could vote.
Yeah.
Let's go back and talk about how we rallied together as a country to support the world in World War II.
Yeah.
Right? And the great work we did there then to become a world power and expand our energy and our innovation and our know-how around this world to make the world a better place, right? We go talk about all the great work we did then to overcome the civil rights era and improve our country when it came to justice for our LGBTQ community. That's when America was great, right? It wasn't back in the time where we were just talking about a manufacturing era or
industrial
or an era of just whiteness, of white nationalism or white supremacy, which I think is what that code really is for. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So love to talk about making America great again, and that is when we use that innovation and those that energy and synergy and American know-how that helped us tackle all those hurdles that were in front of us once upon a time,
Mm-hmm.
and that will help us to tackle the hurdles of us in the future, right? So that's what that's about. But they've done a great job with that.
Yeah.
Right? Drain the swamp. Another perfect example. No,
And that's actually true. I was like, okay, if you can do that, I would love that if you did that.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately,
Have you seen the swamp lately?
it's it's not good.
It's not good.
It's not. Well, here's the thing: the swamp is getting drained, kind of, because if you've noticed, there has been a big swing in like Republican senators, House of Representatives, stuff like that. That they're jumping ship. They're just like, we can't ride this anymore. As of recently, they're just like, I'm not going to seek re-election. They're like, they're even doing this. Yeah, I gotta step away from that, like, because they know that there's a backlash starting to come up where they're like, you told me you were going to do this.
Right. So I don't know if the elected officials, I would say, are the swamp folks as much as it is the outside people have been brought.
But I'm saying the people that, not in saying the elected officials in and of themselves are draining this one. What I'm saying is that the people that were doing it the wrong way, in those elected positions and not actually representing their people, people are starting, the wool's going away.
Yeah.
And you're starting to see like, oh, no, you're not actually helping me. And you're starting to see, but it wasn't the swamp that he talked about. It's the bad people that were not representing the actual constituents. That's starting to open up. And then they're like, oh, I think we had the first Democratic representative in Alabama, or was it in the last House, whatever, I think.
Senator Jones, yep.
Yeah.
No,
So,
yeah.
I mean, that's so giant that people don't realize that is how much it's actually starting to change, and people are starting to be more progressive about looking at maybe this isn't necessarily the right way to go. Maybe the people are actually more important than the business, because the people make the business.
I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like the business, you've built a business, and it's successful. But if you didn't have the good people working for you, you wouldn't have that business. You couldn't do it alone. Yet again, we.
So you have to have a good balance,
Mm-hmm.
and we're out of whack right now, right? And our friends on the other side are already talking about us being radical, socialist, and all those things.
Yeah.
And I'm a long way from a socialist, right? Like I said, I've created hundreds of jobs, and I
Mm-hmm.
impact thousands of small business owners.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm looking for is a humane capitalism, a capitalism with heart, capitalism that's actually fair. And right now, there's so much unfair going on, within our country,
Yeah.
that has allowed wealthier people to get wealthier. Why stagnation has remained.
Mm-hmm.
Have incomes gone up a little bit? Yep, they gone up a little bit. Have they kept up with the rising cost of healthcare and prescription drugs and housing and things like that? Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not talking apples to apples when we say that. Are more people employed today? There are more people employed today. We got record unemployment. Some of that is because a lot of those people are working 2 or 3 jobs. They're still living paycheck to paycheck,
Mm-hmm.
right? So yep, some small progress. But we passed a tax bill,
Mm-hmm.
though, which we gave 83% of the benefit to the wealthiest 1% of Americans.
Trickle down.
Yeah. I think we're tired of being trickled upon.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
And the people in the state are being trickled upon, and hopefully they're starting to get a sense of that. Some people got a little bit of a tax break. They might have got $40, $50, $100 more a month, and that's, for some people, that is very, very important.
Yes.
Right. But they deserve more than that. They deserve better than that.
Mm-hmm.
And we need a tax bill that really is beneficial to hardworking people and people that are out there struggling. That's not what this tax bill did.
Well, and I think the disconnect of giving it to businesses and people don't realize is when you give it to a business, that business invests it and it doesn't go back in the community. When you give it to the community, it goes back into the business. Because people, not to say people don't save, but people will take some of it and put it in savings, but they'll invest it back into the community. They'll buy stuff from the local businesses. They'll have more money, more income to do stuff like that. When you give it to the wealthiest 1%, they're just going to make more money. They're just going to put it into whatever they want, but they're not investing in the people that are down below them. They're investing in, whatever they want and stuff like that. So it is a little bit different. I'm glad to see you actually see stuff like that where you go, no, the people are important. Not to say the business isn't important, but you understand that it's those people that are going to make that business succeed or fail. Of restaurants, you guys work with a lot of alcohol control licenses with your stuff and whatever, and you understand that it's hard for bars. It's hard for places like that when the economy's down. They're struggling to make a buck too. Yeah. And they need those people to have that kind of money to be able to, get in those restaurants, get in those places to actually, because people can't eat out. They can't do stuff. And that's unfortunate.
You're right. So we need both.
Yes.
Right? You can't have risk takers and innovators without having people that can turn the widget on and turn it off and drive it forward and manufacture it, whatever we need to do. So we need to take care of each other. That's how capitalism does work. Right now we're not taking care of each other as well as we could be. And some of that's, again, by design, by policymakers. And then certain folks in the business world that want to not make sure that we have a fair capitalistic society. It's not sustainable either, right? So the other side will argue about socialism and radical things like that. Not interested in that at all. I know the strength of a good capitalistic society. I also know the strength of a good democratic society. And again, our democracy is under siege and being shackled.
Yes.
And we need to make sure that we don't allow that to happen.
All right. Well, I guess, is there anything you'd like to say in closing? We've actually had a pretty good conversation. I've been very fortunate to be able to speak with you. This has been awesome for me to be able to have such a big guest, I guess. We've had more artists, so it's actually nice to have someone of your ilk, we'll put it with. I'm giving you trying to make your head a little bit bigger for the closing. So
Well, I don't need that because I'm just here to be your humble servant. I'm here to be a humble servant of the people of this state and this country. I'm here asking for their vote, to be a public servant, to be involved in public life, to serve the people of this state and this country in the United States Senate. I think my background, which we talked about, and all the things I've done in the community, really put myself in a position to do something unique and special. And that's because I've been touched and blessed by so many people that have put me in this position. And I like to give back a little bit more by representing this great state in the United States Senate. I'm hoping people out there will help us get there. If you're liking what you're hearing, go find us at eddiemauro.com, MAURO.com. People will go help us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Obviously, we're out trying to build a team. I'm out trying to garner a team and resources. It's going to take a team effort to get our country back on track, to keep moving us forward. So thanks, Nate, for having me. I really enjoyed the time. And to all the people out there watching, thanks for taking time to watch us.
Thanks, Eddie. I know it's going to look a little weird, but it's called Poundtown. It's actually basically we give nucks. So thank you for everything, and good luck with everything.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, Eddie.
Yeah.